everyone! The last time that we read the Parker Inheritance, we were in a flashback to 1986, when James Parker, otherwise known as Reggie Bradley, went back to meet Siobhan after 29 years of not seeing her. And when we read before, we found out that Candace had solved part of the mystery, but she left us on a cliffhanger because we don't know what she solved. So hopefully we will read that today. The next morning, Parker was awakened by the phone ringing on his nightstand. An envelope was waiting for him downstairs. Inside was a letter, 3 pages long, and a bracelet. He read the letter twice. Then he packed and drove himself to the airport. He paid a ransom to catch the next direct flight to Denver. At the gate, he spun the bracelet around on his finger. It was smaller than he remembered, lighter. He had slaved over it in shop class. He wanted to give her something she could wear with little suspicion. That's why he put love on the inside. The message was just for her. Across from his seat stood a black trash can. He could drop the bracelet in the garbage, and that would be the last of Reggie Bradley. He would truly be dead, like everyone else believed him to be, like Siobhan now believed him to be. He walked over to the trash can, peered in, and tried to will himself to drop the bracelet, to be rid of Reggie, of Siobhan, forever. But after a few seconds, he slipped the bracelet into his jacket pocket, where it would be safe. Then he boarded the plane and went home. Chapter 43. Candace texted Tori, "Wake Brandon up now. Tell him to check his email." She had already sent him a link to the biography of Leonhard Euler, an 18th century Swiss mathematician. Euler, pronounced Euler, had an important number named after him, 2.71828. 10 minutes later, her mother's phone buzzed. It was Brandon. He wanted to meet right then. After a little back and forth, they decided to meet for breakfast at 6 o'clock that morning. While Candace waited, she tried to piece together the letter's secret message. She knew she had to sum up the numbers, so she added pi, 3.14159, and Euler, or E, 2.71828. It added up to 5.85987. That meant absolutely nothing to her. She read the letter again. It said, "Siobhan is the key, the one who will lead you to my fortune." The one, Candace thought. She added 1 to the number, making it 6.85987. But that still didn't mean anything. She finally went back to bed and promptly overslept. Candace woke up to find her mother shaking her. She sat up quickly. "What time is it?" 7:45, her mother said. "Brandon's in the living room. He said y'all were supposed to meet this morning. Do you want me to ask him to come back?" She jumped out of bed. "Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes, okay?" Her mother nodded. You still have plenty of time to spend with Brandon, and we'll be coming back." "Mom, I know, this isn't about that," she said as she searched through her clothes for something to wear. "Then what's it about?" she asked. "His summer project?" Candace was glad she had put the letter away before she'd fallen asleep. It remained safely tucked in one of the yearbooks. "I promise, everything's okay. We're not up to anything devious." Her mother sighed. "All right, I'll be in my office then." Candace brushed her teeth and quickly changed into a t-shirt and shorts. She grabbed the yearbooks and her calculations, then ran to the living room. Brandon sat on the couch. He had placed her iPod on top of her library books and on the coffee table. "Sorry I took so long," Candace said, out of breath. "It's okay." He scooted over so she could sit. "You found the missing piece of the code? Hadn't we seen the link to Euler before? We skipped right over it." "I know," she said, "but I'm still stuck. I've been trying to crack the code all night, and I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. It's just a bunch of numbers to me." She showed him the sheet with her calculations. "Maybe it leads to an address, or a safety deposit box, or maybe..." Candace eyed the grin forming on Brandon's face. "Oh my God, you figured it out, didn't you?" He broke into a toothy smile. "Solved it right before I walked over." He took her paper and placed it face down on the coffee table. "Let's start with the obvious. We have to add something up. That's why the word sum is there." "What are you, a math teacher? Just tell me the answer." He shook his head. "Are you kidding? I gotta savor every last chance I get like this." He paused. "Savor means..." "Just get on with it," she said, pushing him. but she was smiling as well. Like I said, we have to add it all up first. He took a pen from his pocket and rewrote Candace's calculations. Pi plus e equals x. 3.14159 plus 2.71828 equals x. 5.85987 equals x. What about Siobhan? Candace asked. She's the 1. I think we should add 1 to it. That's what I thought at first too, until I read the letter again. She opened the letter and pointed to the same line she had struggled with earlier. Siobhan is the key, the one who will lead you to my fortune. You know those games on the back of cereal boxes where the letters stand for numbers? What does every code need in order to be cracked? Candace slapped her hand over her mouth. A key, she mumbled. He started writing again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So if Siobhan is the 1, does S equal 1? Candace asked. I already tried that. It didn't work. He did a little hand dance. Candace had never seen him so giddy. But Siobhan was also called Lil Dub. W, Candace said. Exactly. Brandon filled in the digits, starting with W. A was 5, B was 6, C 7, D 8, E 9. W was 1, X was 2, Y was 3, and Z was 4. By now his fingers were flying, and so 5.8598 are the letters A, D, A, E, D. It took a little while, he continued, but I finally figured out I had some extra numbers and letters in there. He struck out the last 2 digits and letters. So 5.85 is all we need. And that equals ADA. Ada, he said. Ring a bell? Ada Marie Perkins, the first principal of the school. She grabbed his arm. You think the fortune is in the memorial room? He nodded. Or at least another clue. The school, the church, Parker had hidden clues in places he could control, places where he donated money. It was totally logical for the next clue to be hidden in the memorial room. But the first and second clues led to E and pi, she said. The third clue told us to add them up. The key for the code was Siobhan's name. She sighed, but we still haven't figured out the fourth clue. She loved all. Maybe it's a trick, Brandon said. Maybe we don't need to find the money. Parker could have just put it there to throw us off. I don't know. Most puzzles don't work that way. Candace spun the bracelet around her wrist. Had her grandmother gotten this far, only to fail and figure out the fourth clue too? Well, unless you have other options, I still think we have to go back to the memorial room, he said. We need to check out the portrait of Ada Marie Perkins. She nodded. Think we could get Miss McMillan to meet us at the school this afternoon? Only one way to find out, and we'll need someone to distract her. Brandon looked at Candace. She looked back. Tori? Chapter 44. This is crazy, insane, absolutely absurd, Tori said as they drove to Lambert High School. Then she smiled. But it's also, really, really awesome. I'll keep Miss McMillan busy as long as I can. It wasn't until they pulled up to the school that the doubt began to creep into Candace's head. She mapped out all the ways this could go wrong. It was like a Jenga tower that would topple with one wrong move. She wondered what her mother would say if she was bailing them out of jail. Oh, hello, Tori, Miss McMillan said as they entered the memorial room. You decided to tag along today, too? Actually, Brandon and Candace have inspired me a bit, Tori said. I was hoping to do some research as well. Not about Perkins High School, but about Wallace. Do you have any more of those old yearbooks around? Oh, well, they're in storage in another part of the building. Great, I'll come with you to get them, Tori said. Miss McMillan eyed Candace and Brandon. Are you two okay? Do you need anything? The questions were innocent enough, but to Candace it felt like an inquisition. We're fine, Brandon said. We know exactly what we're looking for. Sounds good. Be back in a few, Miss McMillan said, pulling her keys from her back pocket. As soon as Tori and Miss McMillan left, Brandon dragged a chair to the Ada Marie Perkins portrait. He stood on the seat and stared at the image. Anything? Candace said. If there's supposed to be some secret code here, I don't see it, he said. I think we need to cut it open. Brandon lifted the frame off the wall. Candace took one side of it and helped carry it to a nearby table. They placed it face down, just as they had hoped. The back was covered with brown craft paper. She ran to her bag, then returned with a small box cutter and masking tape. Don't mess up the portrait, she said, handing him the box cutters. He nodded, then began cutting. Candace's stomach sank with every slice of the blade. Finally, he cut enough to pull the paper back. Candace could hardly breathe. There was a small envelope taped inside of the wooden frame. The envelope was small, the size of a credit card. Brandon opened it and pulled out a small slip of paper. The heir must find the... Candace's inside churned. We're wrong, she said. No, we're close. He stuck the note and envelope in his pocket. Quick, let's get this back up. And that's where I'm going to stop for today. And we only have about, 8 more chapters left. So I think that the end of this mystery is coming, and I want you to make any predictions that you possibly can about what they're going to find or what the end of this mystery could be.